All right. We're back from closed session. County Council, is there anything to report out of closed session?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There were a number of items taken up in closed session, but no action was taken by the board on any of the items. Direction was given where needed and discussion was had, but no action.
Great, thank you very much. We will now start our regular session of the Board of Supervisors of Madera County. Again, today is February 12th. The time is 10:08. We're going to open and close. I've got a couple. Mary Batty, age 47, just passed away. Was a wonderful person here in our community, and just our prayers for her and her family. She was originally a Huntley. Many of you know the Huntleys, but gone too soon. And just wanted to open and close in her honor today. And then I just wanted to have our prayers for our good friend and colleague Ahmad during his recovery, and wish him a speedy recovery. He'll be greatly missed while we're waiting for him to get back here. Yes. Is there anybody else that has anybody? Tom?
Yeah, a very good friend of mine, Danny Texcara, called him Disco Danny at the old days at Ducey's and stuff. He moved up here from...
Disco Danny at Ducey's?
Yeah.
Good alliteration.
He is a great guy, and he passed away last week, actually almost 2 weeks ago now, but he was a great guy. He had his own business up there. He did a lot of carpenter work and stuff, but then he done a cleaning business he had up there, and where they vacuum and mop. How they do rugs and stuff in homes and stuff. You know, those big old
shampoo cart.
Shampoo one of those things. And he even his last 5 years, he had to have oxygen and stuff, and he still get out and do that. I mean, he strapped that on and run that big old machine and still danced away. I think he's probably dancing up there watching us right now. So it's a good thing to his family and stuff, and we're thinking about him. So
great, thanks, Tom. Any others? Seeing none, we will have Pastor John Purcell with Believers Church. We'll do our invocation. And Sheriff, would you like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Thank you, Chairman Frazier. Let's pray together. Heavenly Father, we come before you this morning with thanksgiving in our hearts for this day that you've given us. We first of all lift up these, Lord, the families and the friends, those that have passed, and this one that's ill. Lord, we ask you just to bless them, to comfort them, help them during this time, and Lord, help us to be to them what we need to be to help them through this time. Father, we thank you for this meeting today. We thank you, Father, that your wisdom is available to us as we humble ourselves before you and as we ask for your help. And I thank you that this morning that the board will walk in your wisdom and your understanding in their decision-making process. Thank you for everyone who participates in this meeting today. May your hand of blessing be upon all of it. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Join me in honoring our flag. Ready, salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now, as a special treat for all of us, we have the Madera South High School Choir here today, led by the choir director, Roger Harabedian. And then I'll ask the board members, we should come down here so we can enjoy the song into the...
good morning, everyone. I'm Roger Harvey, I'm the director of choirs in Madera South High School. This is our pianist, Mr. Mark Woods, and I've got our chamber singers here to perform for you. Thank you so much for having us. They're going to do a selection called I Can See the River Flow. Thank you so much for having us. And if you'd like to hear a little bit more, we also have we have a crazy event coming up. It's called Valentine's Day. You may have heard about it. And over at South Campus, we started something last year, and I'm not so sure we're happy we started it, but maybe we are. We started doing singing Valentine grams, and last year we had over 100 of them, where we went out to classrooms and performed. And so we've got some little selections if you guys would like to hear a little bit. We'd love to share just a little bit more.
Absolutely, yeah.
So rewrite the songs.
Do the boys get to sing this time?
Yep. Oh yeah. Got it. Almost forgot. We do have that.
Can we switch now?
Sure. Quick. So if you've seen the movie The Greatest Showman, this is a song that's from it. It's called Rewrite the Songs.
What if we rewrite the stars? Say you were made to be mine. Nothing could keep us apart. You'd be the one I was meant to find. It's up to you, and it's up to me. No one can say what we get to be. So why don't we rewrite the stars? Baby, the world could be ours tonight.
Okay, one more?
One more. Sure. And I'll just tell you you on it is made popular by Bruno Mars.
When I see your face, there's not a thing that I would change, 'cause you're amazing, just the way you are. And when you smile, the whole world stops and stares for a while, because you're amazing, just the way you are.
So those are some short ones looking for the ballot.
Thank you, we also have a certificate for your wall in there. Thank you for starting our day off in a much better way than we normally get to have it start off. This is the most beautiful thing I've heard from this day. Is usually I just have to hear my colleagues talking from there. It's not quite as beautiful. But thank you, and thank you for bringing beauty into our world. And then we'll get all the board there too. So we had originally heard them perform at during our 125th year celebration out at the cemetery, and ever since then I wanted to bring the choir in here. You know, without arts, we live in a very dreary place, and so to bring the arts wherever we can, I think is important, especially in here. So thank you again. So now we'll move on to public comment.
Public comment. The first 15 minutes of each regular session are set aside for members of the public to address the board on any matter under the jurisdiction of the board but not appearing on the agenda. The board will not take action on any items presented under public comment. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes. Anyone addressing the board is asked to print their name clearly on the speaker sheet at the podium and state their name and county of residence for the record.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Joel Begay, County Administrative Office. I'd like to take a moment to introduce the newest member of the administrative team, Jessica Leon. She is the new administrative analyst that's going to be working on the budgets, newest member of the budget team. Before I turn over for her for a few comments, I'd like to mention that she is a City of Madera resident in Supervisor Rodriguez's district.
Great. All right.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Thank you, Joel, for that introduction. Just wanted to say that I am grateful for this opportunity. I am very excited to be here. I started with the county about 8 months ago with the Department of Social Services. It was a wonderful experience. Prior to that, I was in the consumer finance industry for about 3 years. I am a Madera High graduate, and I'm just honored to be here today, and thank you for this opportunity, allowing me to be part of this team, and I look forward to working with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Joel, for taking Tom's question away from him. Sorry, Tom. Yeah.
That's okay.
Supervisor Wheeler?
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I've got a couple letters. I don't usually read these, but these are, I think, were very special. This is from Bob Kernigan, who was one of our volunteer firemen up there for 100 years. He used to be a teacher at Yosemite High. I'm writing you to commend Chief Matt Watson for going out of his way to solve a problem with some PCFs, paid call firefighters. Somebody don't know that. I try to make a habit of informing superiors when someone goes above and beyond. Recently, the personnel from one of our stations were not paid through no fault of their own. The timesheets were submitted properly, but what happened after that is a mystery. The employees were told they would have to wait another month to get their check out, resulting in their being paid 30 to 60 days after the work was performed. Chief Watson took his very valuable time to walk the issues through the channels and get the employees paid in a more timely manner. To me, his actions standing up for his people show excellent loyalty and leadership. His efforts are much appreciated by his employees, and I hope the board as well. I hope you share this with other members, and thank you, Chief Watson, when you see him. Thank you for your time and your service to the county. Bob. Thank you, Matt. I thought that was a great deal, and I know we've had some past problems with our PCS, but we've been gaining so much, it's not funny. We've got some that's actually starting to come aboard, so we keep helping them, and I think we're going to build that up. The other one's from Dell Stafford. I have no idea who it is. They live at Bass Lake. They, we contracted with Blue Ridge contractors up there to get all those trees off our roads and our property up there, even the Bass Lake property. My name is Dale. My wife is Kim. We live at Wigwam Road in Bass Lake. It goes on about how bad the trees are up there. We all know that. And then the Blue Ridge team came. There were two trees that were sandwiched between 3 homes, and one overhanging my deck, and the other side of Wigwam Road. We just arrived at our home for Christmas to see the finished work. Lloyd and the rest of the Blue Ridge team were awesome through the process. It started with Helen in the office, knowledgeable and promptly following up all the way through the field work. The field team efficiently and safely removed the tree with little residue. The big scheme of the things, you can barely tell 220 plus feet tall trees were removed. Just thanks again, and thank you for hiring Blue Ridge Services. So when we do those kind of things, and we get people saying positive things, it's nice, and I just wanted to share that. So thank you,
Tom.
guys.
And I actually have a public comment as well in response to a story yesterday that came out about a 10-hour-old baby that was left on the center line. We need, I know at the end of the thing it said law enforcement wants to take this opportunity to use this to remind people of safe surrender sites at hospitals, at fire stations. There are places to go even if you're scared. And I got a message from a member or a resident in the Ranchos about looking at a sign from 36 or 15 saying there's a fire station there. So maybe with fire and roads to put a sign, and on that sign having a safe surrender logo. But this shouldn't happen this day and age. And I don't want to comment too much more on it, or else I go between getting very mad and very sad at the same time.
It's unbelievable.
But if we could do something like that, even if it's just a little bit, that could have saved. Luckily, the person was there to save that baby's life, but maybe that sign could have helped get the mother to where she needed to go. So we need to make sure that we have that education out there in some way.
One quick note too, then that I think if we do that, we ought to do it around all the fire stations, maybe.
I agree, yeah.
And, I mean, it's not like a sign costs $1 million, so it would be, if we can save one person, it's
Yes,
just.
that baby's life is worth more than that,
Right,
whatever that
exactly.
sign would be.
And then one other thing, the news release was released yesterday, and I'm probably not supposed to put it out, but I'm gonna do it anyway. The Forest Service and CAL FIRE and Land Management put out they just finished their survey at the end of 2018 for the dead trees in our 10 counties. It's 18 million more have died, so instead of 121 million, now we've got 147 million dead trees. It's covered over 9.7 million acres in federal, state, and local private property. And so our deal with Blue Ridge and stuff, it just kind of backs up the stuff that's happening up there. So when people think it's over, it's not over. So, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was just going to make a quick clarified comment. So the law went into effect in 2001, and so now you probably have people who are maybe shouldn't be parents but are definitely old enough to be parents who may not even know the law exists. So I appreciate you putting the signs up. I just wanted to clarify that it's for manned fire stations and hospitals. So at least for starters, like out the Ranches area, Matt can clarify, but I think that's 19 and the Tesoro Viejo station. And then I guess as time goes by, as the other ones get manned, you could put up more signs, but certainly much safer and wiser to drop them off at the fire station than in the center line of the roadway.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Sheriff.
And maybe if the pit team can put something out too, you know.
See, they're already on it. Look at
Yeah, I know. All right, is there any other members of the public wishing to come forward? Seeing none, I'll call close to the public comment portion and move on to consent calendar. Supervisor Wheeler, I didn't do a good job this time.
Yeah, you did a pretty good job.
Pretty good job.
Item D, I don't know where, it says we're getting money from the deferred maintenance. What part of that is it coming from? What is the 11,000 coming from the operating transfers? And then on item 3, what buildings that we're renting is getting this money, and where's that going, and why we're putting that much money into that thing when it was supposed to be self-funded? And when we're all said and done, I would really like to get a total how much we spent that we wasn't going to have to spend on this Fossil Discovery Center since we've been doing this, because I thought that was supposed to be self-funded all the way through. So.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Maria Miranda with General Services. So as far as the funding, we have 2 pools. We have some salary savings and building maintenance that we wanted to take from salaries and allocate it to spend it in services and supplies. Every year, we always end up with unanticipated costs, and whenever we have savings, we want to just allocate it to the building maintenance general budget, and in anticipation of any overages in the coming before the end of the fiscal year, essentially. So we are in decent shape, but we just wanted to add, since we know we're going to have those savings, we just wanted to allocate it to spend it at a future date. Just for some things that are outstanding right now, we need to replace some solar panels out at the Road 28 campus at that solar field. We didn't have that budgeted for this fiscal year, so since we have those savings, we want to offset with these salary savings. The rental funds are coming from the DA probation properties that we purchased earlier last year, the 4-plex. So we had 3 tenants in that when we purchased it, and they were running out their rental terms through the end of December.
Do we need that money to keep upkeep though for that building?
Building maintenance has already done some really general stuff there. We replaced some windows, and we replaced a very inexpensive refrigerator, very minimum cost, and those were already paid out of building maintenance, very, very minimal costs. We have one tenant that's left, and they're vacating at the end of February. They're actually looking to purchase, and their purchase fell through initially. So they have one more in the works, and they're planning to be out by end of February.
So you don't think we need that money for future upkeep if we don't sell it?
No, it's going to be demoed. So we're demoing it for the future Hall of Justice project, probation and DA, that future site. It was the last property we purchased for that site. Yeah, so we purchased an occupied property. So we were just letting them run out their lease term, and then they're all vacating. We're going to demo that property.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then item number 2, is that from entry fees and stuff?
So-
11,000? I mean,
So ba-
where does that money go that they collect every time people come to it?
Right, so back in, I believe it was in August, I brought an item to your board to replace the well at the Fossil Discovery Center. As part of the lease agreement, the Fossil Discovery Center folks are required to maintain general building maintenance out there. This doesn't qualify as a general building maintenance. So the county was required to replace that well. When we initially brought that project to you, we had anticipated building maintenance, doing the additional trench work for the new site, and it ended up being a little bit more than we could handle with all of our other projects. So we went back to the well company and asked them for a quote to do that additional trench work. It was 200 feet of trench work. So that's the additional funds that we're moving from building maintenance over to the capital project to pay for that trenching cost that we were originally planning to do in-house.
How long was the trench?
200 feet.
How much?
200 feet.
200 feet? And they charged $11,000?
It was $9,400, and then we added a little bit extra funds for project management, because we were looking at, right now they have for their fire suppression water storage, it's a pond.
Do we get any bids for that? That seems really high for 200 feet.
We used the contractor that we had on site for the well construction.
Wow, that seems really high. I don't know, $9,000 for 200 foot to put pipe in it. I mean, or they put electric in it too, or?
How deep was the trench?
Let me see.
It better be 2 feet at least.
Yeah, 2 feet.
By law.
Perfect
Here
timing,
we come,
Raymond.
buddy.
Here, I have the quote here, but Raymond's the expert, so I'll turn it over to Raymond.
Hi, my name is Raymond Huerta with Building Maintenance. Yeah, they did put electrical in there, so we had to tie into the existing wellhead. So they couldn't put the rig on the existing, there was no room for the rig, so that's why we had to locate it where we had to put it at. And but it wasn't just a straight shot. There was curves, and there was a lot of irrigation and conduit in there.
So they had to go around that?
Yeah, they had to go around there, and then it's like a graphite, you know how they shoot the gunite on the pools?
Gunite, yeah.
That's what the sidewalk is, or the walkway for that pond. So it was a little bit more than just going in there and trenching. And then, but they did put pipe in there and then
Was
hooked
that
up.
part, the pipe and the electric, was that part of the 9,000?
Yes,
Oh, it was? Okay.
yeah.
So it wasn't
That
just
makes more sense.
it wasn't
Makes
just
a lot
a
more sense.
renting a ditch witch and
Yeah.
running it 200 feet. That's
No. They had to go through some, they actually broke into the overflow for the pond, so they had to repair that. There was a lot of pipes in there for irrigation and for the fire, for
So
the
we
pipes.
didn't have plans on those, that?
Yeah, we did. They came out and USA'd it and everything, but you know how sometimes
They miss it.
they miss it, exactly, right.
Well, I'd just like to have a cost of what we've been spending on that thing from the day we opened it, and they swore to us it'd all be self-funded, so thank you. And then item E. Sorry, Brett.
I figured D.
Huh?
I figured D.
D, I got, oh, you did, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. E, how much do we get for that rent for that piece, or from the airboard? Is it free, or is it?
Yes,
It
it's,
is,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. It's
No, I just wondered on that, just wanted clarification.
Yeah, so it's an
And,
ongoing term, and then I don't think there's no rent included in that lease.
Okay. And then item F, I looked in there and it says we're paying $1.30 a square foot. Is that what the going rate is for that type of building there in Chowchilla?
Yes, there isn't actually a lot of available office space right now to compare comps, but that's based on the research I did when we redid this lease, yes, that's the good going rate right now, and the 1%'s under what a typical cost of living increase would be, so it was.
Yeah, the
it was-
1%, I
yeah, it
didn't
was
mind that at
reasonable,
all. I
yeah.
mean, I just wanted to make sure that the $1.30 in Chowchilla.
No, that sounds about right.
I don't know about Chowchilla, that's the reason I'm asking, because up there it's not quite that much, so, except that I just found it a little different while ago, so, thank you. Thank you, Marie, you do a great job, so, I love putting you on the spot.
In the future, I will realize that anything that is coming from Maria, we'll just put on public session, because you're going to be here anyway. No spelling errors this time, Tom, is it? All right.
Thanks, boss.
Are there any other questions regarding the consent calendar? No, I'll entertain.
Move to approve.
First, let's do public comment on the consent calendar. Any members of the public wishing to comment? Seeing none.
Second.
We have a motion.
Second.
All right, call for the vote.
Call for the vote. Supervisor Rogers?
Yes.
Supervisor Wheeler?
Yes.
Supervisor Poitras?
Yes.
Supervisor Rodriguez? Supervisor Frazier?
Yes.
Vote passes 5-0.
I don't get it. Oh, yes. Oh. I put the second there.
All right. Let's see, we are past 10:30, so public hearings, 7A.
7A, Community Economic Development Department Planning Division. Hearing to consider an application by DG Course Code California 1UT LLC for a letter of public convenience and necessity to obtain a Type 20 off-premise license to allow the sale of beer and wine for convenience store. The property is owned by DG Course Code CA 1UT LLC and is located on the northeast corner of Highway 41 and Road 417 Course Code. The parcel is zoned Planned Development District, and the general plan is Neighborhood Commercial Designation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Matt Trieber, Community Economic Development Director. With me is Jamie Bax, Deputy Director, and Emily Barr, a planner with us. We do have a brief PowerPoint presentation for the board's consideration today on this item. And with that, we will roll into it. So the property is located on the northeast corner of 41 and its intersection of 417. The application before the board is a Type 20 ABC license, which is for off-premise sales of wine and beer from the Dollar General store that is at that location. Census tract, the next is a map of the census tract that encompasses this property. As you can see, it goes all the way up to Highway 49 in Oakhurst. It's a large census area. The ABC allows 6 licenses within this census tract. This would be the 8th license. We are recommending approval of the board, before the board today, and we're available for any questions that you have.
Are there any questions from the board? Seeing none, this is a public hearing. I will open the public hearing at this time. Is there any members of the public wishing to make comment? Please come forward.
Well, good morning, members of the board.
Is the light on there?
There we go.
There we go.
I think I got it. Hey, good morning, members of the board. My name is Steve Rawlings. I'm here this morning on behalf of Dollar General stores. Just for the record, I concur with the staff's recommendations, and I believe we operate several stores here in Mid-Jarrett County, and all of those do inventory a little bit of beer and wine. We just provide that to our customers just to kind of round out our complete offering of grocery and consumer goods. We have about 250 stores in the state of California that are currently licensed to sell alcohol. We have an excellent track record of being a very responsible retailer and a good corporate citizen. And I'm available for any other additional questions that any of you gentlemen may have.
Are there any other questions of Steve?
None from Steve.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public wishing to make comment at this time? Seeing none, I'll call close to the public hearing and bring it back to the board for Supervisor Wheeler.
Yeah, I'll make the motion to approve. I got one call from one local owner of a mini mart, but we passed one for him up in Oakhurst, but another one just like it, so I said, so one's good for one and not good for the other?
Everyone wants theirs to be the last, right?
Yeah, so I make a motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Supervisor Wheeler?
Yes.
Supervisor Poitras?
Yes.
Supervisor Rogers?
Yes.
Supervisor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Supervisor Frazier?
Yes.
Vote passes 5-0.
And they're both good businesses, so we're going to benefit, so.
We're in a very clean, good operation in the ranchos, so appreciate it.
Yeah.
Let's try to sit next time and see. Ready? Public set, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, public session 8A.
8A, Board of Directors, Groundwater Sustainability Agency for the Madera, Chowchilla, and Delta Mendota Subbasin and Natural Resources Department. Groundwater Sustainability Plan update by Stephanie Agneson.
Stephanie and Agneson, Director of Water and Natural Resources. This is your monthly update on GSAs and GSP development. First, a little good news. You'll recall we did basin boundary modifications last year in May and July. Those went to the Water Commission successfully, and they have now gone into effect with the Department of Water Resources.
Perfect.
Okay, here are some updates of what's gone on in the last month in GSA and GSP activity. First, on January 14th, there was a workshop called Flood MAR, that's Managed Aquifer Recharge. That was the same day as Regional Water Management, so I was glad to go, Supervisor Wheeler, to this event. This brought farmers and the Department of Water Resources into a listening mode where they learned about the difficulties, the challenges, the hurdles, and what information needed to be shared with managed aquifer recharge. One of the things that was very important is we heard from the State Water Resources Board in terms of what permits are necessary to do recharge, because we have heard a lot informally, there's a lot of water on the bypass, why can't we just use that water? Well, there is a permitting and a series of steps you have to go through. So this workshop helped kind of walk us through that. At Fresno State, there was also a water market symposium. This was useful in terms of everyone coming together and listening to each other's concerns. We did not have a lot of ag at this particular meeting. It was more about other groups that had concerns about water markets. That includes the environmental groups and the disadvantaged community groups and regulatory agencies. And then last Thursday, we did have a self-help workshop and a leadership council workshop at the senior center where we went over conceptually what undesirable results are and what effects they've had in people's lives. The ones that we talked the most about are lowering of groundwater levels and water quality issues that have come up. So those were kind of 3 workshops that have gone on in the last month. In other news, we do have our RFQ that is out now that will use grant funds from the Department of Water Resources to install monitoring wells in the Madera and the Chowchilla subbasins. That's entirely funded by a grant. The RFQ closes this Friday. We do have a potential RFQ that we can release shortly. As you know, we received a grant from the Bureau of Reclamation for $400,000. It's going to pay to develop a water market. So we are ready to release an RFQ to hire the folks to design the market. That would include having stakeholder meetings as well as writing a white paper and coming up with the rules for markets. And then we have a potential RFQ that needs your direction. As you know, the GSAs right now are working on their groundwater sustainability plan with grant funding. Right now, before the groundwater sustainability plan is adopted, we can go out and charge a regulatory fee in order to have the agency's administration and professional services and studies done. This would include studies like feasibility into recharge in different parts of the county. We also, after the GSP is adopted, can go through 218 proceedings, which would include being able to raise money for the important work of recharge in terms of purchasing land, building basins, and acquiring temporary urgency permits and permanent water rights permits to water on the bypass. So we have these 2 options for funding right now. After consulting with Deputy Counsel Linden, we think the best thing to do would be to have the rate consultant advise us on which of those options is best. So we would like to go out with an RFQ to have a rate consultant do that analysis. I'm going to pause there in case there's feedback.
Well,
Supervisor Wheeler?
yeah, thank you. I mean, we really need to do this. So when you're on that, on the funding, are you talking about start charging for gallons of water used and stuff like that we've talked about for a few years now? I mean,
Yes,
you
so
haven't-
that's one potential way to charge would be an estimate of acre feet extracted.
Right.
based on well data or satellite data that estimates how much water people are using. So that's one option. There are other options. You could charge a flat fee. You could charge based on acreage or parcels. But there are options, and it's not quite as simple as I'd like it to be. So I think the rate consultant could analyze and propose something
So
for us.
we need to get a company to come in and give us a study of what would be the best way to raise that revenue? Is it?
So what we would do is we would assess what budget elements we need, and we've done that part, so we would be giving that to them in order to have the agency be able to function as a water agency, essentially. And then the question is really how best to raise that, to fund the agency.
Right. If you guys remember, Rob, I don't think you were on here, but the other four were one of the proposals out there, property out there by the Children's Hospital. They wanted to give us .0005 per gallon of water usage. And I know 0005, that was their number. They come out of nowhere, and I asked them, if you remember, we kept bugging them, would you come up with this number? Well, we had to pick a number. I don't know what that number is. We never did really follow through the staff. We didn't have this department then either that we have now. So I think it's time that we really have to start looking at that and see what is the best way. I don't know what the best way, but they are doing this all over the United States. So it's not just us. So we can't be behind the eight ball, because what's going to happen then when we start really have to really do something bad, then it's really going to come unglued. So.
And I wasn't here for that conversation either.
Oh.
Yeah.
Has it been that long ago?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It was right before I came on.
Yeah, it was a year before, wasn't it?
Yep.
You were attending some of the meeting, but
Yeah.
yeah, during that time. The problem I see with a per gallon fee is that you have to know the gallons. And that is a problem. And you're going to have a huge bureaucracy built to go out and collect information, and we're going to pay money through the nose to have that bureaucracy that's going to collect this information to charge people to offset the thing. So I think something simple that the water districts do is a per acre, based on the size of the lots, the acreage of the parcels in question, and you cover every parcel within the district for that specific district's needs. And I think that's the way to do it. Personally, it's simple, it's effective, and we can get the job done. I think people will be a lot more likely to vote for a 218 on something that's certain than something that's a guess. You know, and like Tom said, they had to come up with a number, so they threw one out.
Yeah.
You know, and then you never know what that volume is going to be. Farmers don't know what it's going to be based on what year they get surface water delivery. Like in 2016, clear to October, it happened. And then there are other years where we had no surface water delivery. So you'd have a variable there, I think, that creates an ambiguity that gives people pause, and the other definitely has a more definite tone to it.
Well, not just for them, but any surface water that comes in or changes that makes our receivables.
Situation better.
It fluctuates too, whereas when we run most of our, general services from our general budget, we make a lot of our decisions based on a very safe property tax base, and then the sales tax is that can fluctuate at different times. And I think that would be kind of like this. Supervisor Rodriguez?
Stephanie, as you talk to these water users, have they offered any suggestions on what the formula would be as far as charges? And what is their attitude as far as being charged for use of water, and how to calculate the cost?
So I think ideally they would like to be charged by a meter. The meters are kind of an old school technology, but they do give you a number of how much water you're using. So that seems to be a preferred method. But I mean, I think essentially our issue here is that we're now in charge with running 3 different water agencies for the groundwater sustainability agencies, but there's no funding mechanism in place to do the very important work that we need for recharge. So the rate consultant could come back with a proposal, either whether we need to do a fee and do it now in pre-GSP adoption, or need to go through a 218 proceeding, either now or next year.
And I don't get to put my name on here, but I get to go now. To answer some of your question, the people that I've talked to, from small to very large farmers, residential, all know that there's going to have to be some kind of charge to do this work, and are willing to pay it. I mean, we just had a meeting a couple weeks ago, the very large farmer that recognized that and saw that. I see kind of a blend at some point. There's some basic underlying work that we do as an agency that can be through a fee per acreage, and then when we're looking at like actual projects and recharge projects that benefit, when we have the ability with meters that we can read, at a central hub versus, just relying on someone sending in their meter. We have to send somebody out to read the meter, which takes a lot of time, money, and effort.
Takes all the money up that we're going to try to collect.
It takes all, yeah, just like to David's point, that we eat up any of the money that we could be using to put water into the ground in running around trying to collect data. But if we had meters that could, that it came back to here, and there's that technology very, and then we can make those charges based on that, and then they can see that that money is going towards an actual recharge project that helps with their groundwater levels and different things like that. I think that's where we need to move to, but I think at the pre-GSP, we look at like some kind of a per acreage charge that covers the agency, the formation, doing all that stuff, and then after, when we're looking at the projects, do a 218 that says, okay, that you're paying this much, on a per gallon or, per acre foot charge, whatever it is, and then can show them, and that money goes not to, funding the agency, but it goes to funding projects. I think then it's a lot easier to pass a 218 when they see there's a benefit to it. So that would be kind of my approach, or how I would see it working well, and that makes that per acre less, because it's not trying to grab everything all in one fell swoop. Does that seem reasonable?
I think that's reasonable. So that you're suggesting using the regulatory fee approach sooner and the Prop 218 proceedings later?
Yes.
And there's consensus around that? Okay.
Yeah, I was going to suggest, that's the reason I took my name off.
Okay.
Supervisor Rogers? I think to your point, it makes perfect sense that the actual project costs would be borne by the users. Mm-hmm. And definitely there are those who own acreages that don't pump as much water as others who own acreages. So in that sense, we would all be developing the GSP, but by the same token, when it comes to the actual project costs, they'd be borne by those who have
the ones that are actually
greatest
using
use.
it. Yeah. Supervisor Wheeler?
Makes perfect sense.
I kind of go with that too. Two things. One thing about 3 or 4 meetings ago at the RWMG meeting, the Regional Water Management Group, it was all the water districts, mostly, and everything else in Madera County, which Stephanie usually goes to also. One of the big farmers, big one, said that it's time that we all stepped up to the plate and figured out how we're going to stop this. And one of the ideas he came up with is, and I brought this up one other time, is that, say you got 1,000 acres, I'm just saying it out, and he's got more than that, or he manages more than that. But say take a certain percentage of it and fallow it, and say 0.25%. And everybody in there kind of went along with that. I mean, all the water districts, MIDs in it, and what have you, and and they were all saying, well, that's not a bad idea to help alleviate this problem, and maybe they could get credit some way on their fees of what we're gonna do if they'll fallow a certain percentage of their land, especially these almonds and pistachio growers, because how do you differentiate between those and a regular grape farmer or anything else that's only using maybe a quarter of the money, water that those guys are
Or
using?
even just a residence.
Residents, you know, and, well, you gotta remember, the groundwater, under our groundwater only 5% of the water is used by residents. All
Right.
the rest of it's farmers, so.
Yeah, differentiating is important.
Right, it
Because
is.
somebody's extracting, for their 5 acres, they're extracting a lot, where another
5 acres with 20
5
houses
acres
is
with
not
just a
doing-
house is not doing anything.
Yeah, I think it's important when looking at that, the fallowing, and this was brought up at one point, everyone kind of understands that that's going to have to happen, but one of the iterations was that, whatever your block is, if you got a 40-acre block, you have to fallow 10 acres of that. And the point was made, well, if I own different property, different places, and some is prime ag land, if I have 40 acres over here that's in prime ag land and 40 over here, I don't want to take out this 10 and 10
Take
over
20
there, I'll
over
take
there.
20 over there.
But maybe they're not pumping as much water at that area, and maybe it's a different water table also.
Well, usually the ones that aren't prime ag land don't have good water.
Right.
So they're not pumping
They
as
don't,
much,
so-
yeah.
So they're really, I mean, that
So
might
they're having to go
defeat the
deeper
purpose
and-
if it's an area that the water table, like in the south and the north ends, are sucking it down the most 10 feet a year, so that makes a big difference too,
Yeah,
so.
and that we'll look at that through.
I think the study would bring a bunch of that
Yeah.
kind of stuff out too, so.
Okay. Sorry. Thank you. That seems like direction in terms of moving ahead with the regulatory fee. Yep. In terms of the subbasins.
And there doesn't need to be a 218 on a regulatory fee, is that
That's correct.
correct? So how is a regulatory fee imposed?
The Board of Supervisors would vote.
Just like a regular, when we do our.
It'd just be like the fee
building
schedule.
permits or anything.
Joy.
Okay.
We take the heat.
Oh, joy.
Good morning, members of the board. Mike Linden, Deputy County Counsel. Just to add to your point, yes, the regulatory fee is something that's exempt from Prop 26. It is something that your board would adopt with a regular vote. Sigma does have some public hearing requirements. The basis for the fee has to be put out there, I believe, 20 days in advance, and that's where the rate-making consultant comes into play. And then it's a public hearing here at the board, but otherwise it's a regular item before your board.
Right.
And Stephanie, there would be outreach beforehand, before that 20 days, that everyone will know. We'll probably put things into the paper and.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. Okay, I'm going to keep going with the presentation. Thank you for the direction on the RFQ. So we have in the Madera Subbasin, 7 GSAs and 4 GSPs. This hasn't changed since last month. Chowchilla Subbasin, 4 GSAs, doing 1 GSP. And then in other news, and this in some ways relates to the funding challenges, we are doing a groundwater and surface water model in the Madera and Chowchilla subbasins, modeling or doing something in a spreadsheet that's similar to a models required under the law for the GSP. And there's a model called the C2V SIM FG for Fine Grid. It's a Central Valley model that the Department of Water Resources put together. So in that model, we're currently working with the beta version, which, as you all know, is not quite the perfect version they've released yet, but it's the only one available. They are going to release a better version sometime soon, but we're not going to be able to use that in order to meet their deadline. So we may need to update our plan at some time in the next couple of years in order to incorporate more modern modeling efforts.
Supervisor Rogers?
Yeah, does that, like the modeling that occurred for Temperance Flat Dam, does that include a climate change?
I think it does have a climate change component to it.
I know it's not your fault. It's nothing to do with you. But I just get so tired of this crystal ball approach to science. And I don't think there's a model out there in the world that can predict climate. I mean, obviously,
Heidi Klum is usually pretty close. She.
Anyway, it's frustrating to me.
It is.
As a scientist, a person who's studied science my whole life, I just get really, math is math, and 1 + 1 is always equal 2. And you can't put this fuzzy math into the crystal ball and come out with the right answer. It doesn't work.
Understood.
Anyway,
Sorry
about
It's
that.
okay. And then moving on to the Delta Mendota, the county has 1,000 acres that are within this subbasin. They are sharing out water budgets in the month of February. They don't have a location in Madera yet, but they will add one to the end of the month or early March.
Good.
And then the advisory committee, this is our group of different stakeholders from ag, urban, disadvantaged communities, is meeting tonight. And I just wanted to flag what I think are the policy level decisions that will come back to you. We will talk again about the native groundwater distribution. This is the amount of groundwater that's in the ground from precipitation, as well as infiltration from stream flow, that number, and how to distribute that across irrigated and unirrigated land. We will talk about the glide path, that is the gentle demand management as we move forward. We'll talk about a crediting system. That kind of gets at the idea, if I'm a farmer and I'm building something, if I'm paying for it, I want to credit back in terms of how much water I can use, but probably the GSA gets a little piece of that credit, and the subbasin may also get a piece of that. So that's another topic we'll discuss starting tonight. And then there's the issue we got out earlier, which is estimating water use and whether or not we're going to rely entirely on meters or meters with telemetry, so they're sending meter data to a central location, or satellite images, or there's a third option where we use electrical data from pumps, can give you a pretty good estimate. There's a company called Powwow that does that work. So those are our next meetings tonight, and those are our policy issues moving ahead. And that concludes my presentation. I'd be glad to take your questions.
Are there any further questions?
Very good job. And
Yeah, very good.
Thank
a
you.
lot of questions that are going to be answered in the near future. I think one that's been asked over and over again is the crediting. How will I be credited, or will I be credited for work I'm trying to do to save the groundwater? And thankful to have in the audience today Mark Hudson, Triangle T, and they have really, really led the way in the industry of groundwater recharge, just showing the effectiveness of Floodmar and what they've done over the last couple of years. Thank you, Mark.
I didn't want to bring it up, but Mark's the one who brought up the idea of doing the volunteer
Fallowing?
fallowing, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mark. I didn't want to say that because I didn't know if you wanted that to be out there, but. I really appreciate it, I'll tell you.
So-
We've got some really good people who have a grip on this, and they want to see it solved too.
So in the modeling, like through the credit system, there'll be like accepted standards of what would constitute recharge, so that someone can just go and point and say, this is what I'm doing, versus just coming up with something new? Or is there ways, if something new works, to be able to incorporate that?
We're basically doing a brainstorming session tonight on it, so we'll come back to you with a recommendation. But yes, I think kind of we're going to hear from both sides in terms of that.
Good, thank you.
It would seem that some of the standards for GSPs are in flux over years, and I would assume that some of the methods that we use will probably also be in flux, depending on whether they're accepted engineering practices, or if they're proven to be effective, that can become an acceptable method or whatever. So I think there's a lot of things that will change in time continually until this kind of levels off over a period of years. I'm glad it's out there for 20 years rather than immediate.
Certainly.
All right. If there's no further questions, is there any public comment on item 8A?
Mark Hudson with the Triangle T Water District, and I just want to thank Stephanie for providing leadership. She's done an excellent job. And we don't always agree, we never will always agree, but she's a very calm voice in the room.
Yes.
And that's very nice, and I appreciate your guys' support on this too, because nobody knows what to do. We're all kind of finding our way through the hallway darkly. So appreciate it, appreciate your support, and we'll do the best we can.
Thank you, Mark.
All right, I'll call close to the public comment portion. That was just an update. Item 8B.
8B, now you're sitting as the Board of Directors for the Flood Control and Water Conservation Agency, Water and Natural Resources Department, Benefit Assessment Formation Services. 1, discussion and consideration of entering into an agreement with Larson Wurzel and Associates in the amount of $420,900 to provide benefit assessment engineering services for the formation of a new assessment district to fund operations, maintenance, and/or improvement of the county's levee system and drainage facilities, and authorize the chairman to sign. 2, discussion and consideration of approval to authorize the Director of Water and Natural Resources Department to issue the notice to proceed. 3, discussion and consideration of approval to authorize the Auditor Controller to issue payments for contingencies up to 20% of the contract award amount per established county policy. 4, discussion and consideration of approval to authorize the Director of Water and Natural Resources Department to solely issue and approve contract change orders in accordance with Public Contract Code not to exceed authorized contingencies.
Thank you, Stephanie and Agneson, Director of Water and Natural Resources. I'm here with Dario Dominguez, our engineer who manages the Flood Control and Water Conservation Agency, and Scott Brown, who is an engineer and the potential consultant from Larson Wurzel. So, as you know, Chapter 110, the Water Agency Act of 1969, established the Madera County Flood Control and Water Conservation Act. It established the agency, it provided for authority of the agency, it designated you as the board of directors, and it defined powers, duties, and obligations, as well as a tax structure. Here's the background. This work started with Ahmad Al-Khayat. There was a workshop to the Board of Supervisors back in November of 2017 on the challenges in terms of flooding, in terms of flood control funding. Then in February of 2018, there was direction to move ahead with a preliminary study with a purchasing agent agreement. The study basically figured out how we could fund the agency more. In August, Ahmad and I and Dario presented in terms of the results of the study, and we had direction to move ahead with an RFQ for an engineering report and a Prop 218 election. And then I came back last month to get direction to apply for the flood map funding. It's maintenance assistant program as opposed to flood MAR, managed aquifer recharge. Water has a lot of acronyms. And then here we are with the results of the RFQ and the potential award of the contract to Larson Wurzel. Here's some data in terms of the miles we're talking about. We have both project levies that were engineered by the Army Corps under the condition that the county would be the LMA, the local maintenance agency. Currently, the project levies are decertified. We're working on getting them recertified, but part of why they're decertified is there's lack of funding to maintain them. We have a total, if you add the 26, 82, and 71, including project levies, non-project levies, and channels, of about 180 miles within the county, all work that we have to maintain. You'll recall flood events from last year, but actually last week is not a bad example either. We are always at risk for flooding.
Now get ready if this storm comes like it says here in the next 2 days.
I know.
It's going to be a lot more.
So this is the flood of 2017. This is the ash slough failing You can see there's a Chowchilla Water District truck on the far left, but more concerning is that there are lots of homes for the city of Chowchilla residents also on the far left. So this is, we were temporarily stabilizing the levee there. And then this is a good example of property damage due to flooding. This is the Chowchilla City Yard, and you can see there's some pipes that are falling in because the bank is eroding. And then this is Brenda Creek, where the levee broke. And this is a failure that could be caused by rodent damage. We have 3 or 4 things that typically come up over and over again. One is we have to maintain the vegetation. Yeah, one is the rodents, and although it sounds like the plot for a Disney film, basically because there's so many nut trees, the squirrels take the nuts, they build the cache is in the levee. That's like a pocket, then they're eating from the cache, right? And then they've created an air pocket, essentially, within the levee. We also have issues with sediment, which decreases the capacity of the channels. We also have issues with farmers in terms of encroaching on the levee, which also destabilizes it. Here's some flooding that also represents potential damage. So we encourage flood managed aquifer recharge, but of course that's intentional with the farmer's permission. And these almonds may not recover and may not be productive for years. So in terms of grant funds, you can see a pretty robust list of grants that Dario has applied for and is currently the project manager for. Some have closed, but a fair number are open. Grants are great, but they don't really provide the funds for daily maintenance. They provide funds after something has gone wrong to fix something. And they're a good example of the nothing's ever free in the world of grants, which is to say we spend a fair amount of our time administering them. The workload for a grant is substantial. So what are our neighbors doing? And this is all neighboring county. I'm sorry.
Moving further, I mean.
You want to put your name up?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Supervisor Wheeler?
Yes, Chairman. I just, the people I don't know if you guys knew, but Cottonwood levee broke a couple of days ago too. So I don't know, the public might not know that. So we're in dire need to get all this done. So people need to know it's happening. I mean, it was a good rain, but nothing like we've had in the past and what might come this next couple, 3 days. So, right, Robert?
Yeah. Hopefully Dry Creek cooperates.
I know. But, you got those levees that are 100 years old, and they've got all the squirrels and everything else that needs to be shot.
Well, yeah,
Help us.
this spring, too, things are going to develop.
Yep. Sorry, Steph.
No, it's okay. That's a timely update. So in terms of what our county neighbors are doing, I'm going to not go in the order they're listed. Let me tell you about Merced right now. Merced has basically a handshake agreement without an MOU. I spoke with Hisham from Merced Irrigation District a couple of weeks ago. They are revising their structure to include being a joint powers authority, but basically they don't have a good funding mechanism in place. Kings County has multiple reclamation districts that are managing their levees, and Tulare, they have a special district similar to ours, and they receive about $600,000 in property taxes, so not enough to do the work that they have. Then we have a couple counties that have more robust structures, as we've all probably driven around Fresno and seen their basins that they have. They have 160 of them and 75 staff, so big, robust agency, and they're separate from the county. But I think it gives you an idea of where you could go. They have a budget of $25 million, and 10% of that is grant funds. And just a note, they're not a great comparison in terms of the functionality because those basins are mostly capturing stormwater runoff from hard surfaces, so it's flood prevention. It's a very good thing, but what we're doing is levee maintenance, so a little bit different.
Supervisor Wheeler?
Yeah, so what do they get that other 80% or 90% of their 25 million? Is it out of their budget?
They are assessing people.
They are assessing.
Yep.
Everybody, all property owners, or just, is that city or county too?
That's all of
I have their tax rate table.
Oh.
They're assessing single-family residences, depending on what zone they're in, and they're paying somewhere between $11 and $43 a year. They're assessing multifamily residences. They're paying somewhere between $10 and $23. They're doing rural residential, commercial, ag, on an irrigated and non-irrigated, and it's based on zones. So there is a
And we could-
potential structure there.
We could do something similar because our zones, I mean, we get the flooding up there too. I mean, it's probably not as bad as some of this when they really get a break a levee and stuff, but we get flooding. We could have a zone for that up there. I like that idea because I think that, and we could do that regulatory, I think, too.
I think it might need a 218.
On that?
Yeah.
Assessments, yes.
You would have to, Scott.
Deputy County Counsel Scott Ross. Yeah, just to clarify, if you're doing an assessment, which I know because I live within the FMFCD area and we pay those on our property tax bills.
Okay.
Those are Prop 218 required.
Yeah. Interesting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Supervisor Rogers?
Oh, sorry.
Those go this all goes hand in hand. I mean, it's great that this follows our previous discussion because I don't know that people make the nexus between flood and flood control and water, groundwater recharge, et cetera. But there's a great nexus there. And when you take into consideration the tributaries that, or they're not really tributaries or collectors, the flood control channels that we have available, Ash, Brenda, Fresno River, there's a certain amount of recharge that occurs every time water goes down those channels. And we're not only controlling floodwaters, we're utilizing them. We're making sure that they get where it needs to be, and that's in the ground. And it's something that I think can be utilized even more than it is. The potential is really huge there to have collector basins close to what I would call flood channels as delivery systems. To have basins that are identified on land that perks well. And then I've even thought of a process where we'd have to go through the Corps of Engineers, I believe, on this, and probably Fish and Game as well, but baffles in places like the Fresno River, where you have a really wide channel that's not really utilized to its fullest potential, but you could baffle that channel and the water gets to a certain level, it slows it down, it perks, it spills over, it perks, it spills over, it perks. And that is really a working option, something we could look at and even in our modeling. But another aspect of this that's really important is that with decertified levees and with insurance concerns and flood-related problems, building becomes an impossibility. And you're going to find lenders are going to really tighten up on these kind of situations. I'm sure Supervisor Poitras knows about this more than I do, but they're going to tighten up on this to the point where if a person loses their property during flooding, they won't be able to rebuild or what have you because of these decertified levees. And I think it's probably already replete even in the commercial side. So,
Dave, you're talking about Fresno River, it's carrying water now.
what's that?
It's carrying water now, the
Yeah.
Fresno River.
Yeah, see, it usually sits in the center of that channel. And it's a very wide basin. I mean, it's a very wide channel. And I noticed a lot of trees on it that we need to really take out those small trees because those are a problem. But if you baffle that, the water will build up and it'll perk down because it's stopped. Then it spills over and does the same thing on down the line. It's just a really simple concept, but that's a good way to accomplish that.
Under SGMA, that these are floodwaters or storm waters, if we were to collect them into basins, is there a way to get that as credit for groundwater recharge, or are they just going to say that would have naturally recharged anyway?
No, we would find a way to credit ourselves, essentially.
Right. Just wanted to make that.
Supervisor Rogers made some of the points in the upcoming slides, so these will go pretty quickly.
Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. In terms of the current state of affairs, right now, we're basically serving as a project manager for a number of grants. But what we can't do is we can't address the deferred maintenance issues, we can't do routine maintenance or patrols, we can't mow the vegetation, and we can't eradicate the rodents. We don't have the funds to do that. There's also, I think, and I haven't been here long enough to comment, but others have commented that there's been an increase because of the Arundo and in homeless encampments, right? Because Arundo makes a very good wall. So it compounds problems. So there are a number of risks for where we are right now. There's a risk to public safety, for lives, homes, businesses, and crops. There's the potential loss of federal and state funds, or the state becoming involved. And then I think this is where Supervisor Rogers was going. We risk the ability to harness flood flows for Sigma. So this is really the best source of new water out there. So we need to be able to keep the waters in the channels until we can use them, rather than having them break and flood.
You know, along with that, let me just throw something in here. The idea that we have certified levees, and meaning that you have a viable structure for which a certain amount of water is going to engineeringly be able to pass through those viable structures. At that point, you can utilize those perennially. As long as you have water, you can fill those things and not just use them for flood control, but use them for groundwater recharge purposes. When you have 10,000 cubic feet per second released at Bryant Dam, and we could take as much of that water as could be delivered and fill those channels as basins.
Yeah, the channel's really a basin in some ways.
Yeah. So anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Supervisor Poitras, we got another interruption.
Oh, thank you so much. And the reason I'm asking now is because I want you to be able to have that free flow into the decision point. Because what I'm going to ask right now would kind of mess that up. So I want you to have that momentum going into the final action. In regards to the grant funds, on the slide it mentions the Fresno River System Repair Project, $2.2 million, 10% local match. Now that would also include channel cleanup in addition to levee repair. Is that correct?
That includes channel cleanup. The Fresno River, the FSR.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, good. Well, you know where this is going. I get, and probably Max hears all the time, and others, and you just mentioned it about, the Fresno River going through the city of Madera and the homeless encampments and all the places that they have to set up shop. Now, also, do we know where we are under that, on the grant fund request, when we might hear something back?
The flood map, we turned it in, and do you have an update? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Dario Dominguez, Flood Control. Last week, we received a confirmation that they received the application, and they are asking for more accurate numbers so they can match the funding, but it's going to move forward.
Oh, good. Okay, perfect. And just one last thing, is this something that, our friends at the city of Madera, that they have, I know that there's been discussions with them. Is there any interest in their part as far as participating or not? I think I know the answer. Okay, thank you.
Well, they come to our RWG meeting. He was sick yesterday, but they usually, every one of them, and all of our projects and everything else that we put in for that also they're part of it.
Alligator arms.
Okay.
You got an orchard underwater right now, don't you?
I do.
It looks like that picture that we previously with the trees. Yeah, from Dry Creek, right?
Dry Creek, exactly. All right, thank you.
So the next steps that we see, staff would like to enter into a contract with Larson Wurzel. We would give a notice to proceed for the engineering study, which would analyze rates. Then they would come back and present three funding levels, A, B, and C, low, medium, and high. And with your approval, at that point, we could choose a funding level and then move ahead with the 218 proceedings.
Yeah, I think, we've talked about this for so long. It always comes back like some kind of a rondo removal, and we just throw, a single bucket of water on a house
fire.
that's fully, on a forest fire, really. And it's time that we take that step, I think, to move forward and actually get an ongoing maintenance program so that we're not just every other year just trying to remove some plants or do something and just say, oh, we did something, we actually need to move forward, I believe.
I think how we sell it's going to be really important, and I think some of those key points that I made earlier, number one, recharge and perennial recharge, and then of course, building, insurance, public safety, all of those are big issues.
All right, before we do anything at the board, I'll take this out to the public. Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none, I'll call close to the public comment and bring it back to the board
I
for
move
action.
to approve.
I'll second.
You guys want to make your motion on the? Oh. All right.
Call for the vote. Supervisor Wheeler?
Yes.
Supervisor Rogers?
Yes.
Supervisor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Supervisor Poitras?
Yes.
Supervisor Frazier?
Yes.
Vote passes 5-0.
Thank you for bringing that forward.
Great job. You guys keep up the good work, so.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dario.
8C.
8C, County Administration Department, General Services Division. Discussion and consideration to adopt a resolution of declaration of surplus property and notice of intention to set the public hearing on March 19, 2019 at 10:30 a.m. for the sale donation of real property located in County Madera, California, portion of Assessor's Parcel Number 055-043-083.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Maria Miranda with General Services. I am before your board today with a resolution for consideration to declare county-owned property in Ahwahnee surplus and notice our intent to set a public hearing for March 19, 2019 to sell or donate the property. The property is approximately 70 acres and is part of a larger county-owned property, which is approximately 311 acres. The county currently leases a portion of that property to the Eastern Madera County SPCA, which is a nonprofit organization for its future facility. The remaining acreage is undeveloped, heavily forested, and not needed for county use. Pursuant to Government Code Section 25372, the county may donate surplus property to tax-exempt public organizations, and the SPCA qualifies as one of these organizations. Donating the property to the SPCA would assist them in securing financing to complete the construction of their facility. And to date, the SPCA has raised nearly $3 million for the project, and they're roughly 80% complete with the project's construction. And with that, I'm available for questions.
No, it won't let me work. They don't want me to speak no more.
Thank you, Rhonda, for fixing that bug. Supervisor Wheeler.
I'm going to break this thing. Another great job. Thank you, Maria. Dang, I tell you, it's too bad you left me. Gosh darn. I tell you. Eric Stoller. You do a great job, though, Maria. A couple of things. So you guys know that we talked about this before. They've raised $2 million themselves, not one penny coming from any tax dollars, anything else to build that. They're almost done, and they had to do, I forgot, it's like $600,000 more work because Caltrans wanted 40 feet of right-of-way right here. So all the plans, all the engineering they've done, and all those to get to that point where they start building, Caltrans put a big old road block in it, so had to move everything back, build walls, the whole works, run all the sewer stuff across 49. It's just been a crazy thing, so they need the property in their own land, and when we first talked about this, when we gave it to them, back when, whatever year that was, I don't even remember, but was it 12? And the idea was to give them that whole piece so they could have large animals too. This particular piece is just for the small animals and stuff. And that way, there's houses all, you guys haven't got this map, but this ridge up here, this road goes back, there's houses all right next to our property. And this is a fire danger if there ever was one. And they actually used to have a couple control burns there in the old days, in the 50s, and they done all the water study there to show how much more water was produced when they brushed and or burnt the property. And some of those catch basins are still there in those drains. So, but anyway, this is a win-win for us, it's a win-win for the public, and it's a win-win for our animals in this town. So do we still have to have that 60-day wait period?
We overlapped, so I would plan to, I have to do a 3-week notice in the paper, so that would start that this weekend. We'll bring it back in time for March 19th, and it should time out, and I think we have about 2 more weeks left on that 60-day.
Oh, so it's already in place?
Yeah, it's already in place, yes.
Oh, great, that's really good. And is it still now, did they get it surveyed to have the 2 lots?
Yes, so Nick is surveying the property for us. The SBCA was able to get that service donated. We do have to get a title report because we have done some lot line adjustments, so I'm going to order that title report for Nick, and then he can finalize the lot line adjustment, or the survey.
Yeah, Nick, who bought Jones and Snyder, donated the survey and everything for us, so another good thing. So thank you guys, and I hope we get this passed. Thank you for the work, and everybody else has had a part of this, so.
Great, all right, is there any other questions or comments? If not, I'll take it out to the public for comment. Any members of the public wishing to make comment at this time? Seeing none, I'll call close to the public comment portion and bring it back to the board for action.
Move to approve with pleasure.
I'll second it.
With pleasure or just normally?
Just, it's my honor.
Okay.
With pleasure.
Roll call?
Call for the vote. Supervisor Wheeler?
Yes.
Supervisor Poitras?
Yes.
Supervisor Rogers?
Yes.
Supervisor Rodriguez? Supervisor Frazier?
Yes.
Vote passes 5-0.
Thank you. Thank you, staff. We have the best staff in the world, you know that? We are so lucky, I tell you, as supervisors to be in Madera County.
I agree.
It's great.
8D.
8D, County Council Department, Board of Supervisor Rules and County Code. 1, introduction of an ordinance to amend Title II, Chapter 2.03, Section 2.03 of Madera County Code pertaining to the meetings of the Board of Supervisors. Waive reading of the ordinance in its entirety. 2, discussion and consideration to adopt a resolution amending the rules of the Board of Supervisors.
Supervisor Wheeler.
Rhonda, don't work. Request to speak.
Okay.
That's okay. He let me go anyway. But thank you, Brett, for redoing this. We need to keep updating this all the time. And there's just one item on page 3, number 3, officers. On page 12, numbers 12, 13, and 14, they don't line up, so I just said all 3 numbers. No member shall be chairman who has not completed 1 year of service on the board. That same line was in the chairman pro tem, and so it's been left out. We need to reinsert that, and it'd probably be on line 6, 7, or 8 right in there. I think it's very important we have that, and we worked very hard to get that changed years ago, and want to keep it going that way.
Yep.
Other than that, everything looks pretty good. You did a good job.
Thank you. Yeah, the thought behind this, we would go back and forth between 2, 4, 5, and 3 is like the sweet spot. And talking with department heads, they really like that there's some continuity to it, that they know they can make plans for vacations. The thought of not having a meeting after a 3-day weekend. We had one obviously today, not a big issue. People are going to be coming back to work anyway on Tuesday. So this just makes it easier for department heads and also I think for the public to know that the first 3 weeks of each month there's going to be a board meeting, so they don't have to go and check to see if there's going to be one. They would just know that there's that continuity that the first 3 weeks is when they would see one. So, yeah, and so every once in a while there might be like a Veterans Day every 6 or 7 years will land on a Tuesday, and you would just not have one that day, or 4th of July. But the big holidays, Christmas, Thanksgiving, Easter, are generally in the later parts of the month, so won't be really impacted by that.
Gosh, you value consistency?
I like consistency.
Man,
That's
what
the
a
world
great,
coming to.
what a great idea.
A novel concept, right? All right, if there's any other
I
questions.
got
or-
one more thing, just so that.
Can you please ring in? If I don't see your name, I'm not going to give you the floor. Supervisor Wheeler?
Yes, Madam Chairman. Chairman. Just so everybody knows, when you're chairman, you can make some of these changes, and if there's he could have that same option. If there's nothing on for the next week's agenda, they can still cancel that meeting. So it's still that option's in there. So it's not set in stone that we have to have that every third.
You don't have, if there's nothing there, you still have the ability to remove it if there's no need to have it.
And have a special one on the fourth Friday or whatever, or Tuesday, so.
Although the thing I've learned about being in the public sector is that we like to have meetings just for meetings' sake sometimes. And
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. But anyway, so nothing else. I'll take this out to the public. Is there any members of the public wishing to come forward? Seeing no public.
I move that we waive the first reading and set the second hearing for, what is it?
With that change in that.
Yes, adding the language that.
Regarding the.
Regarding the first year.
Chairman Pro Tem.
Chairman Pro Tem and Pro.
I'll second that.
Good.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Call for the vote. Supervisor Rogers?
Yes.
Supervisor Poitras?
Yes.
Supervisor Rodriguez? Supervisor Wheeler?
Yes.
Supervisor Frazier?
Yes.
Vote passes 5-0.
What you did.
All right, thank you all. Pending legislation. I don't think we have any. Supervisor and staff reports. I'll start to my right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As Stephanie mentioned, she talked about the GSA meeting last week at Burgon Center. I attended that. Very good session. I attended the Live Well meeting yesterday, Civics Day with all y'all, and then the EDC Loan Committee meeting last week.
Yeah, attended at Civic Day, and it's always a pleasure to bring the Boy Scouts out here and have them go through a meeting as such, and they really enjoy it. My Boy Scout, he didn't want to talk too much, he's pretty quiet, he was very, but the rest of them really got involved.
They really did.
We enjoyed it, and I think the audience did too.
Yeah, the one that
helped us a lot.
the one that sat in the county council, I mean, he was speaking lawyer immediately. He was pretty impressive. And,
yes, he was.
And one of the things I thought was pretty interesting about the Civics Day is during the bird control discussion, and, Ahmad had pretty funny ones about, coming in with phasers or missiles and everything like that, and, use the, some animation things that you can get online. And through it all, as the kids were looking at all that, they actually ended up coming to a very similar place that we had in terms of like a melding of the falconry with, and my Boy Scout Giano said, well, what about bird netting? And
he just brought it out of nowhere.
Came out of nowhere, and they came to a very adult place, which is, it's kind of where we were almost arriving to, out of nowhere. And so it gave me great hope for the future, and what a great organization. And we received a plaque for the 94th year. It is the longest running Civics Day in the country, right here in Madera County. So
another
Nice
number
points,
one.
too.
Yep.
Wow.
Supervisor Rogers?
Yes, I attended the Joint Powers Authority for the San Joaquin Valley Water Infrastructure Authority. Just to report on what happened there, we passed the MOU with Friant and the other water districts, there's two that are involved in the, taking the funding to the next step of, toward building Temperance Flat Dam. So that project, regardless of what you hear from Sacramento or other places, it's still moving. It's still moving forward and still very alive. And it's going to be built with private funds and with probably some government money as well, on the federal level. If they utilize the Sacramento money, it'll be, I'm sure that they'll put conditions on it that'll be prohibitive. So we've almost determined that they're better off without it.
Don't need them.
Yeah, we don't need it in the beginning, so. Anyway, thank you.
Supervisor Wheeler?
Yeah, it was really neat, those scouts, I put it on Facebook, and I couldn't believe, even people from Madera commented on it, that they were so happy that we, as supervisors, honor those kids and what they do and celebrate with them, so that was really neat. And I just wanted to say, we've got, I've kept rain gauges up since 1972, and we usually average right at 32 inches a year of rain up there. And right now we're at 26.98, almost 27 inches, and quite a bit of snow. There's about 11 inches over there in North Fork at our place, the total so far. And going from Oakhurst to North Fork yesterday, our snow plows has got it up as 2 to 3 feet high over the pass. And it hadn't been that way for, I know, 10 years at least. So it's really nice to have it.
Really good,
Snowpack is just unbelievable up there. So, but I've got lots of complaints. Man, these people move up there and they have no idea.
They don't get it.
They don't get it. I've been up here 3 years and just never had this, and I didn't think I have no wood, I have no electricity, and my husband needs to go to the hospital. And she's stuck.
Hello.
I know.
Supervisor Rodriguez?
Stephanie, could you, I don't know, this is something that I saw, I read about it, about, remember years ago, maybe 10, 15 years ago, we had the Pineapple Express come through? And the weather scientists are predicted that might happen again. Have you heard anything about that?
I think the Pineapple Express is something that occurs under El Nino, and it's super wet
Well,
conditions.
at that time, they didn't mention it, but anyway, what they say is, can you imagine with the snow that the storm that we've had, if that was to happen, that would be a catastrophe. There'd be flooding everywhere.
Yeah, it would.
Well, it would be.
I will look into the Pineapple Express.
Oh, you're going to do this?
I was going to do the letter,
Okay,
if
thank
you're
you.
done.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I have a letter which would allow the county to support an application from the Sierra Resource Conservation District. Do you need it read into the record?
No.
Okay. Well, so there's a Forest Health Watershed Coordinator position. There are 8 statewide, and the funding is essentially just for resource conservation districts. So we would like to support the Sierra Resource Conservation District in applying for those funds. It's about $235,000 over 2 years. It would give them staff, basically, plus mileage and office supplies.
Everyone good with that?
Yeah. Just so we all, we've had that funding for about, I think, 7 years in a row. Then they discontinued about 2 years ago. Jeannie Hobben was the coordinator for that. And Sierra's RCD has applied for it this time. It does cover Madera County also. So it's a good thing, and it really brings a lot of groups together and figure out what we need to do for our water. So thank you very much for bringing that.
Thank you.
Eric, anything?
Nothing.
Scott?
Nothing to report, thank you.
Wanda?
Nothing, sir, thank you.
And then I just had one more. I went to the San Joaquin River Conservancy meeting yesterday where we rescinded all actions that were taken on that 4-hour meeting on January 9th. And so we're kind of back to somewhat square one. I'm going to just keep on having to talk about this project in Fresno. And then yesterday, Councilman Brandau and I went and actually took the bus from downtown Fresno to the 2 closest bus stops to the 2 access points and made the walk. One of them, it's right across the street. The other one, you have to go about 1.25 miles. So I got some exercise, I got some steps in yesterday, just to actually show exactly what it's like, so.
I got one more
Will there be
later.
another vote in the near future?
There's gonna be another vote. Yeah, so February 27th, we'll have our regular meeting to bring back the different options and start all over again, apparently.
Yeah, well, I got one more legislative deal. I got this petition. We, the undersigned, respectively request the Board of Supervisors of Madera County to pass legislation prohibiting the use of power boats over 7.5 horsepower on Bass Lake. We believe they are a menace to the health and pleasure of the greater majority of the people who visit Bass Lake. This was done in the early 50s, and I got all these signatures, and a lot of these people I knew when we first moved up there. One of them, Bill Slickton, still lives up there. L.H. Betty. Reading they found this, L.H. Betty, son Doug, and his wife Betty, Lois, just sold their station up there, and they bought it in 1944. And Jen McMillan, who bought Old Town and Bandit Town now and the Snow Line in Oakhurst, actually bought it all. And they're going to open it up again. It's going to be a department store and a little kind of a sweet shop and stuff. And it was Arco station. We used to be able to buy Levi's, everything there, you know, but they're open again. But there's all these pages of it. I made copies of it. They gave me
That's
this
funny.
to show you what it was in, but it's all folded up in envelopes. So I guess they never took it to the supervisor, so I thought we might just try to run it by again. 7.5 horsepower, Bass Lake.
Yeah. Thank you for the timely legislation.
Right, I know.
The wheels of government turn slowly.
Right, exactly. I couldn't believe that when they called me and told me to come over and look at this, so.
That's pretty funny.
It is.
We're at least under 7.5 horsepower, the wheels of the government turn. All right, and with that, we'll adjourn before
Some of the
noon.
names, man, I tell you, it's so cool.
All I can say.